All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive. Today we're diving into a topic that's all about finding those uncharted waters in the business world.
Yeah. Escaping the sharks, if you will.
Exactly, those calmer waters where you're not constantly battling the competition. We're talking about blue ocean strategy.
Right. Creating a market where there is no competition.
It's a concept that I find really intriguing, especially when it feels like every market is getting more and more crowded.
Well, that's the reality of the 21st century globalization. More players. It all just adds up to a lot of companies fighting over the same shrinking pie.
It's a recipe for stress and burnout, for sure.
Exactly. But that's what makes blue ocean strategy so appealing.
Yeah.
About finding those wide open spaces where you can innovate and grow without constantly looking over your shoulder.
So we're talking about the book Blue Ocean Strategy
Right.
by W. Chan Kim and Renée Mauborgne, right?
That's right, the expanded edition.
Okay, good. I have to admit, business books sometimes feel a bit dense and theoretical to me. But what caught my eye about this one was the sheer variety of examples. Right. I mean, they talk about everything from global giants like Samsung and Apple to wine.
Even the New York City Police Department.
Yeah, the NYPD. So I'm thinking, okay, this can't just be some abstract business school theory. It must have some real practical applications.
That's what makes it so compelling. It's about challenging conventional thinking and finding those opportunities that others miss.
So in this deep dive, we're going to really explore this concept. We'll look at the challenges businesses face in the 21st century, break down the framework for identifying blue oceans, and dive into some practical tools for actually crafting those winning strategies.
It's about making this knowledge immediately useful for anyone, whether you're a CEO or a solopreneur.
I love that. So before we jump into the deep end, let's just clarify the basics. Can you paint a picture for me? What's the core difference between a red ocean and a blue ocean?
Okay, so imagine a market where everyone is selling similar products. They're slashing prices. They're battling for every customer.
Yeah.
That's your classic red ocean. It's cutthroat, it's competitive, it's stressful.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, sadly. Now imagine a market where you're offering something so unique, so valuable that you're not even competing anymore. You've created a space where demand is high and competition is irrelevant. That's your blue ocean. It's about creating new value, not fighting over existing value.
So it's like the difference between, I don't know, swimming with sharks and having a peaceful swim in a secluded lagoon.
It's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And what's really important to understand is that these oceans aren't static. They're dynamic. A red ocean today could become a blue ocean tomorrow and vice versa.
So it's not just about finding an existing blue ocean. It's about creating one.
Right, exactly. And one of the best examples of this is the U.S. wine industry back in the early 2000s.
Oh, I'm interested now. As a wine enthusiast, that sounds promising.
It was a classic red ocean. Crowded, competitive, struggling to grow, yet all these wineries trying to outdo each other with fancy labels, complex flavors, prestigious vineyards. It was all very intimidating and honestly a bit much for the average consumer.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes I just want a nice glass of wine without having to decipher a cryptic label.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where Yellowtail came in.
Yellowtail. Okay, I know that wine.
They saw an opportunity to create a blue ocean by completely changing the game. Instead of trying to compete on the same terms as everyone else, they focused on simplicity and ease of enjoyment.
So they weren't trying to be the most sophisticated wine on the shelf. They were going for something different.
Right. They made it easy to choose, easy to drink, and they created a fun, approachable brand. They weren't targeting the wine snobs. They were going after people who just wanted to enjoy a glass of wine without all the fuss.
So they basically created a new category of wine.
Exactly. And it worked. They became a huge success story, proving that you don't always have to have the most complex or sophisticated offering to win. Sometimes it's about removing barriers and making things easier for the customer.
That's a great lesson. And it's not just about finding an entirely untapped market. It can also be about reframing an existing market in a way that allows you to sidestep the competition.
Right. Absolutely. Think about Cirque du Soleil.
Oh, yeah, they're amazing.
Right.
I love their shows.
They didn't try to be a better circus. They blended elements of theater, ballet, opera, even rock concerts to create a whole new entertainment experience.
They really did create their own category. So it's about challenging those industry norms and assumptions. But how do you actually go about finding those opportunities?
That's where the Six Paths framework comes in. It's a tool that helps you systematically challenge conventional thinking and discover new market space by looking across different dimensions. It's like having a treasure map with 6 different routes to potentially finding your blue ocean.
Okay, 6 paths to blue ocean treasure. I'm ready. Give me the first one.
The first path is to look across alternative industries. We often make decisions by weighing options, even if we don't realize it. Do you relax by going to the movies, getting a massage, or curling up with a book at a cafe? These are all competing for your relaxation budget, even if they're different industries.
Okay, so instead of just looking at your direct competitors, you should consider what other industries are doing to satisfy similar needs or desires.
Exactly. By looking at how other industries solve problems or create value, you might find inspiration for a totally new approach in your own market. It's like cross-pollinating ideas from different fields to see what unexpected hybrids might emerge.
I like that. It's like taking the best features from different species to create a super creature, or in this case, a super business strategy. Okay, what's the next path on our map?
Path number 2 is to look across strategic groups within your industry. So in the car industry, you have luxury cars, economy cars, family cars. By understanding why customers choose one group over another, you can uncover opportunities to shake things up.
So instead of just trying to be a slightly better luxury car, you could create a car that combines the best of luxury and affordability. Or maybe something entirely new that doesn't fit into any existing category.
Precisely. It's about understanding the nuances of customer preferences and finding those unmet needs or desires that the existing offerings aren't addressing.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this looking across approach can really expand your thinking. What's path number 3?
Path 3 is about looking across the chain of buyers. We often fixate on the person who's actually making the purchase, but there are often other stakeholders who influence the decision.
You mean like influencers?
Well, they could be, but
Yeah.
it's a broader concept. Think about a doctor prescribing medication. The doctor is the one making the choice, but the patient is the one who ultimately takes the medication. Or in a business setting, you might have a purchasing department that makes the final decision, but the end users are the ones who will actually be using the product or service.
Right, so you need to understand the needs and motivations of everyone involved in the buying process.
Exactly. And sometimes shifting your focus to a different buyer in the chain can unlock a blue ocean opportunity. The book gives the example of Novo Nordisk, a Danish insulin producer.
Insulin, okay.
They created a blue ocean by shifting their focus from doctors to patients. While doctors prioritized insulin purity, patients struggled with the injections themselves. So Novo Nordisk developed a much more user-friendly delivery system, addressing a pain point that the industry had overlooked.
Wow, so they created a blue ocean by focusing on the end user experience.
Exactly. And that brings us to path number 4.
Bring it on! I'm getting into this treasure hunt.
Path 4 encourages us to look across complementary product and service offerings. Most products aren't used in isolation. They're part of a broader context. And by considering that context, you might find opportunities to improve the overall user experience.
Okay, I need an example for this one. My brain is starting to hurt.
Okay, imagine you run a movie theater. You might focus on having comfy seats and a great sound system. But what about the experience before they even get to the theater?
Oh man, don't get me started on the parking situation at most movie theaters.
Okay, well maybe that's beyond your control. But think about the things you can control. Offering solutions like a pre-movie dinner package with a nearby restaurant or a partnership with a ride-sharing service. These could make the entire experience more appealing.
That's smart. It's like you're expanding the definition of what your business actually provides. You're not just selling a movie ticket, you're selling an entire evening out.
Exactly. And it's all about creating a leap in value for the customer.
Okay, 2 more paths to go. What's number 5?
Path 5 is looking across functional or emotional appeal to buyers. Some industries compete primarily on function and rationality, like budget airlines, while others emphasize emotion and feeling, like luxury brands.
So are we talking about flipping the script? Like making a functional product more emotionally appealing? Or vice versa?
Sometimes, yes. Take Swatch. They transformed a functional watch into a collectible fashion accessory by infusing it with emotion and style.
Yeah, Swatch watches are cool. You don't just buy them to tell time, you buy them because they're fun and stylish.
Exactly. And on the flip side, QuickBooks took the often dreaded task of accounting and made it, well, relatively painless and even user-friendly.
So they took something functional and made it less intimidating. I like it.
Right. So by challenging the traditional functional or emotional orientation of your industry,
Yeah.
you could open up new possibilities.
Okay, one last path. Give me number 6.
Path 6 is all about looking across time. It's about anticipating trends and projecting how customer needs will evolve. Think about how the rise of the internet created blue oceans for companies like Amazon and Netflix. They saw the future before it arrived.
So it's not just about reacting to the present. It's about anticipating the future and getting ahead of the curve.
Exactly. By exploring these 6 paths, you can begin to see possibilities that others miss. You can challenge the boundaries of your industry and uncover hidden opportunities to create new demand. It's like using a special lens to see the market in a whole new light.
This is amazing. We've covered so much ground already. But how do we actually turn these insights into a concrete strategy? I'm ready to start charting my course to calmer waters.
Well, the book provides some incredible tools for that, like the strategy canvas and the 4 actions framework. But those are stories for part 2 of our deep dive.
Oh, man. You're killing me with the cliffhanger. But, all right, I guess I'll have to wait for the next episode. Until then, happy exploring, everyone. All right, welcome back, deep divers. So last time, we really explored those 6 paths to uncovering new market space, those different ways of looking at the competitive landscape to find those blue ocean opportunities. And now I'm ready to get tactical. How do we translate these big picture ideas into an actual plan?
Well, one of the most powerful tools in the Blue Ocean Strategy Toolkit is the strategy canvas.
Okay, the strategy canvas, what is that?
It's a visual way to map out the competitive landscape and to chart your course to blue waters.
Ooh, a visual tool. You know me, I'm all about visuals. So walk me through it. How does the strategy canvas work?
So imagine a graph. On one axis, you list all the key factors of competition in your industry. The things companies are currently battling over: price, features, service, marketing, you name it.
Okay, so for like the wine industry example we were talking about earlier, it would be things like price, taste, complexity, vineyard, prestige, maybe even those fancy labels.
Exactly. Then on the other axis, you plot the level of offering each company provides for each factor.
So you can see at a glance how the different players are positioned, who's bunched up in that crowded red ocean.
Precisely. And that's where the real power of the strategy canvas comes in. By plotting your company's current offering and those of your competitors, you start to see patterns and assumptions that you might have missed before.
You see where everyone's clustered, all fighting over the same territory. But how do we actually use this to find those blue ocean opportunities?
That's where the fun begins. The next step is to draw a new value curve, a curve that breaks away from the pack and creates a whole new kind of value proposition.
Okay, this is what I've been waiting for. Show me how it's done. Let's go back to that yellowtail example. How do they use the strategy canvas to find their blue ocean?
So Yellowtail didn't just try to tweak the existing formula. They really looked at what the industry considered essential and questioned it. They eliminated or reduced many factors that traditional wineries were competing on. Things like vineyard prestige, wine complexity, even marketing spend.
They were like, nope, not playing that game.
Exactly. And at the same time, they raised the level of offering on factors like ease of drinking and created a whole new factor: fun and approachability.
So their value curve looked radically different from all the other wineries. It's like they were playing a different sport altogether.
That's the heart of Blue Ocean strategy. And to help you create that new value curve, Kim and Mauborgne introduce a framework called the 4 actions framework.
Okay, hit me with those 4 actions.
The first action is eliminate. What factors that the industry takes for granted can you eliminate? This forces you to question assumptions and get rid of anything that isn't adding real value to the customer.
Love it. What's next?
Next is reduce. Which factors can you reduce well below the industry standard? This is about streamlining and focusing your efforts on what truly matters.
Less is more.
Got it.
But wouldn't reducing certain features make your product seem less appealing?
Not if those features aren't actually important to your target customer. It's about cutting the fluff and focusing on what truly delivers value.
Okay, makes sense. What's the next action?
Raise. Which factors should you raise well above the industry standard? This is where you create a leap in value for the customer.
Okay, I'm seeing how these actions work together. Eliminate the unnecessary. Reduce what's overdone. And raise what creates real value. All right, give me the final action, the grand finale.
What factors can you create that the industry has never even offered? This is where true innovation comes into play.
Now you're talking. This is what gets me excited. Pushing boundaries, bringing something truly original to the table. But how do you even know where to start with that?
Well, the book provides a tool for that too. The eliminate, reduce, raise, create grid. You can use it to systematically apply these 4 actions to your industry and brainstorm potential areas for value innovation. It's a hands-on way to get those creative juices flowing.
I'm feeling inspired already. But let's get real for a second. Creating a blue ocean sounds fantastic in theory. But how do we know if our big idea will actually work? What if we create something no one wants?
That's a crucial question. And it brings us to the strategic sequence for blue ocean success. It's a process that helps ensure your big idea isn't just a good idea. It's a viable business model.
Okay, a process. I love a good process. Walk me through it. What's the first step?
The first step is buyer utility. Does your offering provide exceptional utility? Does it remove the biggest barriers to buyer utility throughout the entire buyer experience cycle?
So it's not just about the product itself, it's about the entire journey the customer takes, from the moment they hear about your offering to the point where they're using it and getting value from it.
Exactly. It's about removing any friction or frustration the customer might experience along the way. The book shares the example of Philips's CDI, which was marketed as this amazing imagination machine.
I vaguely remember those. Weren't they supposed to do everything? Play games, videos, music all in one?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a technological marvel, but it flopped. Why? Because it didn't offer compelling buyer utility. The interface was clunky, the software wasn't engaging, people just couldn't figure out how to use it easily.
So just because something is technologically advanced doesn't mean it's actually useful or valuable to the customer. Okay, buyer utility check. What's the next step in the sequence?
Next comes strategic pricing. Once you've established that your offering provides exceptional utility, you need to price it in a way that attracts a mass of buyers.
Right. Price it too high and only a small niche can afford it. Too low and you might not make a profit. Finding that sweet spot is crucial. How do you do that? Is there a magic formula?
Oh, there's no magic formula. But the book introduces the concept of the price corridor of the mass. Instead of just comparing your price to direct competitors, you look at the alternatives your target customers are currently choosing, even those outside your traditional industry.
So for Yellowtail, they wouldn't just look at other wines. They'd also consider the price of beers, cocktails, or other drinks people might choose instead of wine.
Exactly. They would analyze the price points of those alternatives and determine where their offering should fit within that range to attract the most buyers. Think about it. If you want to go out for a fun night, you have a lot of options. Movies, concerts, sporting events. Each has a different price point, right?
You're right. So Cirque du Soleil wouldn't just price themselves against other circuses. They'd look at the whole entertainment landscape. They found that sweet spot that was more affordable than a Broadway show, but offered a more unique experience than your average movie night.
Precisely. By understanding the price sensitivity of their target market and the broader context of their spending habits, they were able to position themselves strategically. Okay? So we have buyer utility and strategic pricing. Ready for step 3?
Hit me with it.
Target costing. This is where things get really interesting. Instead of starting with your costs and then adding a markup to determine your price, you flip the script.
Intriguing. So you figure out the price you need to charge to attract the mass market and then work backward to determine how to produce your offering at a cost that allows for profitability.
Exactly. It's about challenging the traditional cost-plus pricing model and finding innovative ways to achieve your target cost without compromising on quality or value.
I'm really starting to dig this blue ocean strategy. It's like a whole new way of thinking about business.
And that brings us to the final step in the sequence. Adoption. Even with a fantastic product at a great price, you still need to overcome hurdles to adoption.
You mean hurdles like convincing people to try something new? Especially if it challenges the status quo.
Exactly. This means getting your employees on board, winning over business partners, addressing any concerns the general public might have. A blue ocean strategy often represents a big change, and change can be scary.
Okay, so we have to manage not only the practical elements, but also the human element. This is where things get really tricky, right?
It can be. The book highlights how Netflix successfully engaged its employees in its shift to streaming, while Merrill Lynch faced significant internal pushback when trying to launch an online brokerage. Clear communication, fair processes, addressing concerns head-on, these are all crucial.
So it's not just about announcing the change. It's about bringing people along on the journey, making them feel heard and respected, even if they don't agree with everything. That makes sense. But we've got one more big piece to tackle. Right. How do you actually execute this blue ocean strategy within an organization? How do you get everyone rowing in the same direction?
That's where the concept of tipping point leadership comes in. It's about leading your organization through a strategic shift, even when resources are tight and resistance is high. But to hear about that, you'll have to join us for part 3 of our deep dive.
Okay, deep divers. We're back for the final part of our blue ocean expedition. And last time we left off with this cliffhanger about tipping point leadership.
Yeah, how do you actually lead your organization through this kind of big strategic shift?
Exactly, because it's one thing to have a great idea. It's another thing to actually make it happen, especially when you're talking about changing the way an entire organization operates.
Well, tipping point leadership is all about focusing on those key leverage points. That can create a cascade of change.
Like a dominant effect.
Exactly. One small push can set off a chain reaction. But before you can even set up those dominoes, you need to address the 4 organizational hurdles. that often stand in the way.
4 hurdles. Okay, I'm ready to jump them. Give me hurdle number 1.
The first hurdle is the cognitive hurdle. It's about getting people to see the need for change, to understand why this new direction is necessary.
Yeah, because people tend to get comfortable with the status quo, even if it's not really working that well.
Right. It's human nature.
Yeah.
But tipping point leaders, they go beyond just presenting data and reports.
So how do they do it?
They create experiences that make people feel the need for change.
Okay, I like that. Make them feel it, not just think it.
The book gives a great example. When Bill Bratton took over the New York City Police Department back in the 90s.
The NYPD.
Yeah, crime was high, morale was low.
Yeah.
And the department was very stuck in its ways.
So he had his work cut out for him.
He did. So instead of just showing the MBTA general manager's statistics and reports, he took him on a tour of the city's worst subway stations.
Oh, wow.
He called it the electric sewer tour.
I can imagine.
He wanted the general manager to experience firsthand the grime, the graffiti, the sense of danger that was plaguing the subway system.
That's a powerful way to make a point.
It was, and it worked. That visceral experience helped the general manager understand the urgency of the situation, and it got him on board with Bratton's plans for reform.
Okay, so that's the cognitive hurdle. What's the next one?
The resource hurdle. This is a big one.
Yeah.
You know, the classic, we don't have the time, the money, or the people to do this.
Oh, yeah. Every organization's favorite excuse.
Right. But tipping point leaders, they get creative. They find ways to maximize the resources they already have.
So it's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. The book shares the story of Dean Esserman, who was Bratton's general counsel at the New York Transit Police.
Right.
They had a surplus of unmarked cars, but needed more office space. Meanwhile, the New York Division of Parole had the opposite problem.
So they did a swap.
They did. It was a simple solution, but it solved both of their problems without requiring any additional resources.
That's brilliant. I love those kinds of win-win solutions. Okay, 2 hurdles down, 2 to go. What's next?
The motivational hurdle. This one is all about getting your team to actually do the work.
Right, because you can have the best strategy in the world, but if people aren't motivated to execute it, it's not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. And to jump this hurdle, tipping point leaders use something called fair process.
Fair process. Okay. Explain that one to me.
It's about engaging people in the process,
Yeah.
making them feel like they're part of the decision-making.
It's not just dictating from on high.
Right. It's about explaining the rationale behind the changes, being transparent about the goals.
Making sure people feel heard and respected.
Exactly. When people feel like they've been part of the process, they're much more likely to buy into the new strategy,
Yeah.
even if it requires them to step outside their comfort zones.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Okay, last hurdle. Bring it on.
The political hurdle. This one's a bit trickier. It's about navigating the inevitable office politics that come with any major change.
Ugh, office politics. The bane of my existence.
But tipping point leaders understand how to play the game. They build coalitions, they identify key influencers, and they frame their initiatives in a way that aligns with the organization's broader goals.
So it's about persuasion, not coercion.
Exactly. It's about finding common ground and making your blue ocean strategy a win for everyone involved.
So we've tackled all 4 hurdles. We've explored the 6 paths, and we've learned some powerful tools and frameworks for creating and executing a blue ocean strategy.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And you know what I'm realizing? This isn't just about business. This is about life, too.
I agree. It's about challenging the status quo, thinking outside the box, and finding those uncharted waters where you can truly thrive.
So for anyone listening out there in the world, whatever you're doing, whether you're running a company or just trying to navigate your own life, remember, you have the power to create your own blue ocean. Don't be afraid to challenge the rules. Don't be afraid to be different. And most importantly, don't be afraid to dive in and explore those uncharted waters. Who knows what amazing things you might discover.